What's going on, guys? My name's Robbo, and we are doing something a little different today. I'm actually recording a YouTube video using my Twitch Studios software. So talk about cross-platform. It's Wrestlemania week, so I thought I'd do some Wrestlemania themed videos. And I'm seeing all the popular kids, all the cool kids on YouTube, they're doing these tier list videos, trying to decide what's the best of the best, the worst of the worst, and everything in between. So I thought I'd do that with the WrestleMania events themselves. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think. What do you think's the best WrestleMania? What do you think's the worst WrestleMania? What do you think's a WrestleMania that are a little bit So let me know. Alright, so as far as Twitch goes, make sure you follow me over on twitch.tv/RobboEntertainment. We're actually going out today after I record this video to get a new Elgato. So should be some cool things happening over on Twitch. But for now, we're here on YouTube. Let's go through the tier list. I can swap screens right here. So the infinite loop of Twitch Studios. Boom. Hopefully you guys are seeing the same screen I am, which is the lovely Tiermaker. Luckily, this whole little deal was done for me. A quick run through the tiers in case you're new to them. So we've got A through D, your normal sort of school grades, I guess, A being the best, D being the worst. Then you've also got the S tier, which is better than A, which is the elite of the elite, the best of the best, untouchable all-time stuff. Alright, so before we start this, I am an Attitude Era kid. The first WrestleMania I have really vivid memories of is WrestleMania 14, Austin, Tyson, and HBK. I have also watched WrestleManias 12 and 13 a fair few times, as I've been trying to appreciate Bret Hart a bit more lately. I was always a HBK guy, so Bret Hart was always someone I needed to learn to like. So I've got a bit more appreciation for Bret as we go along. But all that to say, WrestleManias 1 through 11, I've probably seen them all once, maybe twice each. So my analysis and placement of those ones might not be to your tastes, but hey, that's the good thing. It's my opinion. Everyone's got their own. So let's have a look through. I'll try and do these in order, provided I can get the right posters with the right events. So it is a little bit tricky to see at times. So I'll go through what I've got here and what I can see. Oh, there we go. That's the first one there. WrestleMania 1, it's got Hulk Hogan and Mr. T on the bill. So this was the big gamble. This was the one where Vince put all his money into it. He brought in all the celebrities. We had Mr. T, we had Muhammad Ali, we had Liberace. It was a big spectacle. Did I have matches that are going to rate highly on the multi-scale? Probably not, but it did have a star-studded tag team match. We had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T facing Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, I believe, and Jimmy Snuka in the babyface corner, Cowboy Bob Orton, Randy's dad in the heel corner. So, like I said, these early Manias I don't know too much about, but I will give respect to the historical significance of it. So we're going to put that as a C, which means, not great, not terrible, but, it was a decent watch. That brings me to WrestleMania 2, which I know mostly for being the one where we had a whole bunch of different locations. For WrestleMania, we had Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in the cage. We had Mr. T coming back for a boxing match with Roddy Piper. And I think there was also a Battle Royal featuring NFL players. Honestly, this one I'm going to put lower. I understand the historical significance of those early Manias, but I've tried to go back and watch WrestleMania 2, and just with the multi-location thing, it's such a slog to watch. It's such a difficult watch, and it doesn't have the same sort of novelty as WrestleMania 1, so I'm going to put it in the D tier. I suppose I could have edited these to have a proper F tier, but for now, D's the worst. D's a fail. Alright, WrestleMania 3. So WrestleMania 3, things pick up a bit, and I have seen WrestleMania 3 a few times. Of course, the main matches that stand out are Hogan vs. Andre, I'm not a Hogan fan, but I appreciate the iconic moment of Hogan slamming Andre. Also, the huge amount of attendance, the 93,000 or whatever it actually was still a massive number, whether WWE were inflating it or not. And then, of course, we had the big spectacle with Hogan versus Andre, and we also had a bit of work rate in the 80s. We had the Intercontinental Championship match between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, and that was a classic match. That's one that still holds up today. I'm going to put that in the, I guess, B tier, because again, I'm saving A for the ones that really resonate with me, and S for, of course, the greatest that live on in my memory forever. It's not my era, so B is as high as I can go for Wrestlemania 3, and that's on the strength of Hogan, Andre, and Savage Steamboat. Alright, Wrestlemania 4 was the big tournament, the title tournament to try and crown a brand new champion. And here it is over here at the top, Wrestlemania IV. Get your Roman numerals together. I'm going to put that as a D as well. I like a good tournament in wrestling. I don't think this was a good tournament. It kind of typifies the bad parts of a pro wrestling tournament when they rush through matches and they only last a couple of minutes because we've got bigger, more important matches to get through. And what we had up until the finals of Savage versus Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, we just had a bunch of short, ineffective matches. That wasn't really fun to watch. I think there was about 16 matches on Wrestlemania 4. Bring me to Wrestlemania 5 and the Mega Powers implode. That's the big one I remember, but I remember enjoying Hogan vs. Savage, the Mega Powers going at it. The whole drama with Miss Elizabeth was cool. And I also remember enjoying one of the undercard matches, the Rockers versus the Twin Towers. A bit of an early look at HBK, who would, of course, go on to become Mr. WrestleMania later on. I'm going to put WrestleMania 5 at a B because I enjoyed those parts that I remember. Which brings me to WrestleMania 6. WrestleMania 6, along the same lines as WrestleMania 5 for me. I really enjoyed Hogan vs. Warrior. I couldn't tell you a whole lot much more about that show, but for that one match, it's something I'll go and watch. It sticks out in my head. As much as I'm not a Hogan fan and Warrior, I'm a bit mixed on. They played to their strengths in that WWE Championship versus Intercontinental Championship match. Felt like a huge deal in the Sky Dome, so it gets a B. Brings me to WrestleMania 7, and this is where we get into murky territory for me. It's Hogan vs. Slaughter, where Slaughter was the Iraqi sympathizer, and that was 1991, so I think we had, actually I'm going to cheat here, I'm going to look it up because I don't want to shortchange anything here. WrestleMania 7. Really normal that brings up the right one. Alright. Did it for like WrestleMania 36 and all that when I did at WrestleMania 7. We're going to cheat for these early Manias. I'm not going to do it for the later ones because they should stick in my head pretty well. But surely there was more to WrestleMania 7 than Hogan Slaughter. Okay, the matches. Virgil vs. DiBiase, of course, yeah. That's what I was thinking of. Warrior vs. Savage, the retirement match happened at WrestleMania 7. I couldn't remember if it was 7 or 8 where the retirement match happened between Warrior and Savage. And Undertaker made his WrestleMania debut against Jimmy Snuka. Of course, he won that one. Right, so WrestleMania 7, I can't rate it too high because obviously it doesn't stick out in my head too clearly. But I'm going to put it at a C because it had the retirement match, Warrior Savage, which I remember Savage hitting like 20 top rope elbows, if I've got that match right. C. Alright, WrestleMania 8, which I think we got Hogan vs. Sid, where Papa Shango fucked up the run-in and Sid had to kick out of the leg drop. We had Savage vs. Flair, that's right, where Flair had eyes for Miss Elizabeth and Savage, of course, got really pissed at that. But again, don't remember a whole lot about it. Before my time, it goes in C as well. Because I feel like Savage vs. Flair would be cool. Hogan vs. Sid, I don't remember like 7 and 8 are Manias I've probably seen once, so that's why there's a bit of a lack of depth to my talking about those ones. Then that brings us to WrestleMania 9 in the big Roman Coliseum. Now, I do remember this one clearly. We had Bret vs. Yokozuna, and then we had Hogan coming to spoil the party. I've seen WrestleMania 9, even though it's a bad Mania, I've actually seen WrestleMania 9 more than the other better Manias from the years past. I almost hate watch it because no one has a bad Mania, but the Roman Coliseum thing is cool. We see JR in his first WWE appearance wearing a toga. And yeah, we Taker vs. Giant Gonzalez sticks out to me, as well as the Bret, Yokozuna, Hogan stuff. And then we have, of course, Undertaker vs. Giant Gonzalez, which is just fascinating to watch. There's also a decent Shawn Michaels vs. Tatanka match. So I've named like one good thing against hate watching like, a bunch of other things. So it goes in the D column as well, or D row. Really should get my shapes and things right. Brings us to WrestleMania 10. We're back to Madison Square Garden. So WrestleMania 1 happened in Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania 10 happened in Madison Square Garden. And later on we'll talk about WrestleMania 20 in Madison Square Garden. I really wish they'd gone back to Madison Square Garden for Mania 30. I understand why they didn't. They want to make money. But hey. WrestleMania 10, I'm actually going to put in A, our first A of the series. So even though it's before my time, it's one of those Manias I've watched a few times, at least the high points of it. So we had Bret vs. Owen, we had the HBK versus Razor Ramon ladder match. Then we had, I think we had Bret vs. Yoko in the main event again. But just based on the strength of the ladder match and Bret vs. Owen, those are two huge iconic matches. Along with the setting of being the 10th WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden, the circumstance and those two huge matches push it into A territory for me. Alright, WrestleMania 11. WrestleMania 11 was the one with they went back to the celebrities because the star power on the actual show wasn't too great. We had Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy from Baywatch. We had, I believe that was one of HBK vs. Diesel. And trying to think of who Taker faced at WrestleMania 11. I know he missed 10, but it would have been at 11. Let's go quickly over here. I promise there won't be a whole lot more to rely on Wikipedia for following this one. Here we are. So maybe Taker was missing from 11. Oh, that's right, this one had LT vs. Bam Bam as well. Let's take it vs. King Kong Bundy. That was a bit of nothing. Bret vs. Backlund, I remember being really boring. So basically, top two matches, Diesel vs. HBK, LT vs. Bam Bam, were your highlights. And they weren't too great, so they weren't too amazing. Probably is going to go in a D tier as well. So, I guess LT Bam Bam was okay. Is it C or is it D? I did kind of like HBK and Diesel's chemistry. Okay, it's going to go in C. That's a tough one. Alright. And by the way, before you get into hate comments, remember, these are before my time, so if they're rated too low, I apologize, or rated too high even, I apologize. I'm going off seeing those first sort of 10, 11 WrestleManias maybe once. Alright, brings me to the ones I'm familiar with. So we're now up to WrestleMania 12. Of course, the big one from that is the Iron Man match between Bret Hart and HBK. The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels. We also had the Hollywood Backlot Brawl between Roddy Piper and Goldust. And we had Taker vs. Diesel before Kevin Nash left to go to WCW. That's going in B. I remember that pretty fondly. My opinion on the Iron Man match sort of flip-flops on the day, but it's never like a terrible match. Just sometimes I've got the attention span for it, sometimes I don't. But it was a good story told. And of course you had the WrestleMania debut of one Stone Cold Steve Austin. Brings me to WrestleMania 13, where Stone Cold stars Stone Cold's star really exploded. The submission match with Bret Hart. Of course, the iconic image of Austin bloodied in the sharpshooter. We also had Taker vs. Sid and a Chicago Street Fight. We had Rocky Maivia vs. the Sultan. Honestly, when it comes to WrestleMania 13, the biggest positive I think of is the submission match, Hart vs. Austin. But the rest of the show is a bit so I'm going to put that at B as well. Alright, and then WrestleMania 14 is probably the first one I watched as a fan. Tyson, Austin, HBK. We also had Brother vs. Brother, Kane vs. The Undertaker. So those are the big standouts for me. Pete Rose also appeared on the show and got, I believe, tombstoned by Kane. We had Sunny return with the LOD in the opener, so that was, she looked good in her bikini. So that was a lot of fun. So I'm going to put that at B as well, based on the strength of Kane vs. Taker, which I really enjoyed. People don't rate it as highly as I do, but I thought it was a really great big man match. And of course, Austin vs. HBK. The match itself maybe wasn't as great as it could have been. I think they had a much better match at King of the Ring 1997. But considering HBK had a back injury, and it was more about the crossover moment of Tyson, it was pretty well done. WrestleMania 15, headlined by Austin vs. Rock. We were right in the middle of the Attitude Era. We had Big Show vs. Mankind. We had, I think, Triple H vs. Owen for the European title when DX kind of imploded. Look, it wasn't a great Mania. It was in a hot period, but it wasn't a great Mania. Austin vs. Rock was probably the highlight. The rest of it was kind of there. And less said about Taker vs. Bossman and Hell in a Cell, the better. I'm going to put that in at C. And one big thing, Austin vs. Rock was great. The rest, Alright, brings me to WrestleMania 2000. Now, two big things from that. McMahon in every corner, the Fatal 4-Way, Triple H, Big Show, Rock, and Mick Foley. Triangle ladder match really helped carry this show. And then we had the first sort of signs of work rate in the Attitude Era. We had Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental European Championships. And then we had just fun stuff like the Hardcore Battle Royal. We had Godfather and D'Lo Brand versus Bull Buchanan, Bossman, Ice-T coming out. We had the cat fight between Terry and the Cat. Not a wrestling masterpiece, but 10-year-old me enjoyed that a lot. I'm going to put that in at B. WrestleMania 17, obviously S tier. So, greatest of all time, Austin vs. Rock 2 at Mania. We had the Vince vs. Shane Street Fight. We had Angle vs. Benoit. We had TLC 2, the Gimmick Battle Royal. Hardcore Triple Threat. Raven Kane Big Show was a lot of fun. There's just a ton of good shit with WrestleMania 17 and Triple H vs. Undertaker, which I almost always forget when it comes to talking about WrestleMania 17. The cards that loaded, I tend to forget about. Triple H vs. The Undertaker. Undertaker, of course, being the American Badass at the time. So, WrestleMania 17, not going to spend a lot of time on that. We know how great it is. If you don't know how great it is, go to the network and watch it before Peacock chops the shit out of all the offensive stuff on the show. Brings me to WrestleMania 18, Icon vs. Icon, Rock vs. Hogan. So obviously the big talking point from Mania 18. I also really enjoy Undertaker vs. Ric Flair from that. The Street Fight, the No DQ match, Taker went to 10-0 on that show. We also had a pretty fun undercard thread of the Hardcore Championship. Through the show, started with Maven vs. Goldust, then half the mid-carders on the roster win the belt before Maven gets it back at the end of the show. We also get some pretty good mid-card matches with pretty high-profile stars looking back on it. Your Hall of Famers, Kurt Angle versus Kane, Booker T versus Edge. We also had Austin versus Scott Hall, which wasn't a great match, but we got the Super Stunner that sent Scott Hall to space. So there's that. I'm going to put WrestleMania 18 at B. Triple H vs. Jericho shouldn't have gone on last as much as I like, or love even, Chris Jericho. WrestleMania 19. WrestleMania 19 is my favorite Mania of all time. I'm even going to put it in front of WrestleMania 17. I understand objectively WrestleMania 17 might be the strongest show, but I was more invested in the WWE product in 2003 at WrestleMania 19. We had Angle vs. Lesnar, we had Hogan vs. McMahon Street Fight, we had HBK vs. Jericho, Triple H vs. Booker T, and Austin vs. Rock retirement match. Just mwah. Okay, and then it brings us to place where it all begins again, WrestleMania 20. I actually thought there's some great stuff on this show. There's also some kind of crap stuff on the show. Like, it went 5 hours, and now 5 hours for Mania is nothing, but in 2004 it felt like it went forever. I did have some great stuff that in hindsight doesn't hold up as well because of certain circumstances. Chris Benoit winning the world title, beating Triple H and HBK in the main event. I was emotional at the time, and it feels different now. Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle had a wrestling clinic, that was great. The return of the Dead Man, Undertaker. Then an oddly fascinating car crash that was Lesnar vs. Goldberg at WrestleMania 20. And then we had Evolution vs. Rock Sock Connection, which happened in the mid-card, but was honestly one of the highlights of the show. But there was also some bloated stuff that was like one of those manias where they started the philosophy of get everyone on the card. So we had 2 Fatal 4-Way tag team matches and a Cruiserweight Open, and it just felt a bit needless, just giving everyone a payday. I'm going to put it at B. If it was more consistent, it would go into that A territory. Alright, WrestleMania 21. I've got a soft spot for Mania 21. I don't think it gets the love it deserves. Probably best remembered for the crowning of new main event superstars, Batista beating Triple H in the main event, and John Cena beating JBL to win the WWE Championship. But it also had the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. It had Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, and the friggin' opening match of the show was Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. Look, take out the sumo match, and you've got a world-class WrestleMania. Plus, all the Hollywood parody trailers were amazing. I'm going to put WrestleMania 21 at A. Puts over 10 because I was mostly keyed into the product in 2003 to like 2008 was like my peak fandom years, I think. Alright, so brings me to WrestleMania 22. In Chicago, Cena vs. Triple H. We had the second Money in the Bank. We had HBK vs. Vince in a street fight. Rey Mysterio won the world title in a triple threat, beating Kurt Angle and Randy Orton. And we had the crazy hardcore match between Edge and Mick Foley. They've just put an Untold documentary on the network on Edge vs. Foley. Fantastic stuff. And I'm going to put WrestleMania 22. Look, objectively, it's probably close to as good as WrestleMania 21, but I just don't have the same fondness for WrestleMania 22. There's just something about it missing. It doesn't have that huge WrestleMania big-time feel, despite the theme of the show being big-time. There's just something lacking in WrestleMania 22. Maybe it was that the world title match was super rushed. Maybe the fact that the Money in the Bank match wasn't as good as the first one. I'm going to put WrestleMania 22 at a B. So our B's are filling up here. It's one thing with Mania, it's usually pretty consistent. You get very few terrible Manias. At worst, they're usually pretty good. Bringing us to WrestleMania 23. WrestleMania 23 probably best remembered for the Battle of the Billionaires, Trump vs. McMahon, Vince gets his head shaved, a lot of crossover, celebrity status there. I fondly remember WrestleMania 23 for the 2 title matches, the Cena vs. HBK for the WWE Championship, and Batista vs. Taker for the World Heavyweight Championship. Pair those with a incredible Money in the Bank ladder match that was almost as good as the original, and I'm going to put that one at an A. Brings us to WrestleMania 24 in Orlando, the Citrus Bowl. So we had Edge vs. Taker, main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. We had Ric Flair's retirement match, which was the big one. Probably the most remembered thing from WrestleMania 24. We also had Floyd Mayweather vs. The Big Show. So those things put together put WrestleMania 24 in A territory for me as well. It's funny that the WWE Championship match between Cena, Triple H, and Orton, bit of an afterthought. I think the lights went out during it as well, which added to the weirdness. But, on its strongest stuff, it was as good as it gets. Alright, brings me to WrestleMania 25. And this is a hard one to rank. I'm going to be a little controversial here, maybe. I really didn't like WrestleMania 25 at all. I thought it was a terrible show. But it also has the best match of all time, I feel, the best WrestleMania match of all time, certainly, which is HBK versus The Undertaker. But everything else in the show sucked so much. The Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal, Triple H versus Orton. Did I mention the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal? Kid Rock doing musical performance forever. Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy having this weird Extreme Rules match that just didn't flow well. The Money in the Bank was pretty good too. And Jericho vs Steamboat was fun, but we had to sit through Jericho vs Piper and Snuka before that. Actually, is it B or C? I think I'm going to put out a C. Let me just say, HBK vs Taker, S tier match by itself. The rest of the show, I'd almost be tempted to put at a D, some of it. It sits between C and D for the rest of the stuff. Putting HBK vs Taker to the side. Alright, brings me to WrestleMania 26. This is where they did HBK vs Taker 2, incredible main event. HBK retires. Crown Jewel, Saudi Arabia, never happened. You hear me? Never happened. You also had Edge vs Jericho and Batista vs Cena for some pretty big WWE Championship matches. You had Brett vs Vince, which went forever, kind of dragged things down a bit. You had a bit of a bloated Money in the Bank ladder match. I think all in all, it's probably close in quality to some of the A1s, but it comes down to fondness, so I'm going to just put it maybe at the top of B. WrestleMania 26 sitting at the top of B. Great main event, great title matches. Brett vs Vince seemed to go on for hours, even though it was about 12 minutes, I think. And yeah, it just didn't. Again, even though I was in the stadium, it's a bit like WrestleMania 22. It just didn't have that Mania feel for me. Okay, brings me up to WrestleMania 27, the one where Rock came back and was the host. Okay, first the positives. We had, I believe it was one of Punk versus Orton, where Orton did big RKO out of nowhere. We had Edge versus we had Edge versus Del Rio in his retirement match. Edge's, not Del Rio's, unfortunately. And then we had Triple H versus Undertaker, no disqualification, where they acted like it was the first time they ever matched up at Mania, which is probably why I forget the WrestleMania 17 match so much. WWE's revisionist history working on me. So look, I'm going to put out C. Miz vs Cena in the main event just should have never happened, and it was basically an ad for WrestleMania 28 the following year. But WrestleMania 28 I thought was really good, so I'm going to put it at A. We had Cena vs Rock once in a lifetime. We had Punk vs Jericho. We had, what else did we have? What are the two big ones? And we had Triple H vs Taker, Hell in a Cell, and Venera. So I'm just trying for those things. It gets way up there with the A. Probably had some weak stuff in the undercard. I think that was the one that had Team Teddy versus Team Johnny in 2012, I think. And then this was around the time I had a break from wrestling largely between 2008 and 2012. Still tuned in for the Manias and Rumbles and things. But post WrestleMania 28, Brock Lesnar came back, which changed the game, which probably helps me remember WrestleMania 28 a bit more fondly as well. WrestleMania 29, the sequel's never as good as the original. Nothing that holds up with Cena vs Rock 2. They did the finisher spam. We had Jericho criminally misused against Fandango. So, And then we had Punk versus Undertaker. In the last win Undertaker got in the WrestleMania streak. WrestleMania 30 up next. In New Orleans, where WrestleMania hit. And the streak ended. It was a big one. I'm going to put it at A. Honestly, I don't fondly remember it that much, but it does deserve higher than the ones I've got in the B tier. I think outside of the Daniel Bryan story and the shock moment of the streak ending, not that strong, but we also had the big moment of Austin Rock Hogan in the ring together, and Cena vs Wyatt felt like a big deal at the time. So, some good stuff going for it. And that brings me to WrestleMania 31. I love WrestleMania 31. I watched it back recently. probably one of the best modern WrestleManias. Reigns vs Lesnar were a ton of fun until Rollins did the cash in. Rollins vs Orton in its own right was great. Intercontinental Championship ladder match was great. And Rock Ronda Rousey segment was fun. Taker vs Wyatt bounced back after his streak loss. Triple H vs Sting was fun. They kept it simple and did a great job. I'm going to put it at A. And I'm going to, at the end of this tier list, I'm going to actually arrange these in something of an order to see what the best of each tier is. Brings me to WrestleMania 32. Did not love WrestleMania 32. Triple H vs Reigns seemed to go on forever. My highlights of the show were probably the triple threat women's match. Charlotte vs Becky vs Sasha. And AJ vs Jericho. Didn't like Shane vs Taker Hell in a Cell. Really hated Ambrose vs Lesnar. It's going at C. WrestleMania 33. This one I could be a bit biased for. It was my first and to date only Mania Live. It's definitely a mixed bag. The first half of the show felt like it was great. The second half kind of dragged. Reigns vs Taker, not a good main event. But we had one of the best openers in Mania history, AJ vs Shane. We also had an incredible pre-show match of Neville vs Austin Aries. We had a really great monster sprint between Goldberg and Lesnar, kind of the match they should have had at WrestleMania 20. And the Hardy Boys returned. That was a huge Mania moment. Orton vs Wyatt, not fun. Triple H vs Rollins, I'm a bit so-so one. Kind of good spectacle, but dragged a bit. I'm going to put it at B. And with the acknowledgement that without my nostalgia and being there live, I might get a C. But yeah, WrestleMania 33 for me. Hardy's moment was huge. I've been a huge Hardy's fan forever. So seeing them return on the same weekend that Kurt Angle returned for the Hall of Fame. Seeing Angle back in WWE was on my bucket list. Seeing Hardy's back was on my bucket list as well. So those things were fantastic for me. Alright, brings me to, I believe is that the one? That's WrestleMania 34 up next, yeah. Back to New Orleans. Daniel Bryan able to return to the ring after a couple of years in retirement. We had Kurt Angle returning to a WrestleMania ring, teaming with Ronda Rousey, making her debut. AJ vs Nakamura, Reigns vs Lesnar, having another fun battle with the Bulls. People kind of shit on Reigns vs Lesnar's series of matches. I enjoyed them. WrestleMania 34 is getting an A for me. We also had Charlotte vs Asuka. Not the greatest result, but a fantastic match all the same. So yeah, WrestleMania 34, really strong stuff. And of course, we finally got Taker vs Cena at WrestleMania, even if it was a squash. WrestleMania 35, Kofi Mania, and then this is one that maybe could have gotten A tier if it wasn't so damn long. So I felt like it went forever, but the good stuff was really good. So I put that near the top of B. Kofi Mania and the women main eventings, the main things I remember from WrestleMania 35. Also the Iconics winning the women's tag titles. Big moment for us Aussie wrestling fans. Triple H vs Batista retirement match. That was pretty good. Much better retirement match than Kurt Angle got against Baron Corbin. And yeah, so some good shit, but just too long a show. And finally, WrestleMania 36. The highs were great. I loved that I got creative with the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse. 2 pieces of cinematic madness in different ways. Couple of fun matches, like especially on the first night, we had the triple threat ladder match for the tag titles, where John Morrison really showed out at his return to WrestleMania in WWE. And Owens vs Rollins probably gave us one of the better matches of the 2 nights. On night 2, Charlotte Flair vs Rhea Ripley was fun. And we finally got to see Drew McIntyre climb the mountain and become the champion. And we had Edge's return to WrestleMania in the Last Man Standing against Randy Orton. I enjoyed that match, even if it wasn't. It was probably too long, but I still enjoyed the epic attempt they were trying to do. So I probably put, but then the rest was so lifeless. So I've named some good stuff, but the rest of WrestleMania 36, so lifeless without fans. And that was the biggest problem of 2020 WWE altogether, just losing that atmosphere of the fans. the live fans, the live atmosphere is most of the fun. Not having that at Mania really killed the vibe. As good as the good stuff was, I'm going to put it at the top of C. Top of C, I said. Move, Hogan and T. Alright, and here we have it. Our 36 Wrestlemanias ranked in order. Let's sort out our tiers. So we've got WrestleMania 19 is my top. I might catch hate for that, but it's above WrestleMania 17 for me, which is world class in its own right. Alright, now we need to organize our WrestleManias in the A tier. WrestleMania 21, just personally for me, might be the top. WrestleMania 23 is right near it as well. WrestleMania 24 might put it ahead of 10. 10 probably stays ahead of 28. 30 is probably ahead of 10. I'm going to put WrestleMania 31 actually ahead of all these. There we go. And 34 is better than 28. Is 34 better than 10? I feel like 10's more like iconic in a way. We'll leave it there. Alright, the B tier. We've got what should headline it be? I've just kind of put them in. So I've got a bunch here. What are the ones I like the most out of this? WrestleMania 20 probably deserves to be near the top. Like, the main criticism is that's too long, but the good stuff is really good. Following 20, probably 3. 3 deserves a bit of respect for the two big matches, Hogan Andre, Savage Steamboat. Let's see, I've got a bit of a glut in the middle of some of the more recent Manias, and I can't rate some of these lower ones that highly, like the lower numbered WrestleManias, because I'm not that familiar. WrestleMania 12 can maybe go up a bit. Might put that 29 ahead of 12, yeah. 13 again, 13, a bit like WrestleMania 25. 13 had the one great match and then the rest was kind of eh. We'll put it, you know what, I'm going to just swap 6 and 5. 26 can stay where it is. Actually 26 can go ahead of 35. 14, Explosion of the Attitude Era. 14 can go ahead of those couple. Okay, bring 18 ahead of 16, 2000, 22 is ahead of 2000. Is 33 better than 22? No. Alright, in the C level, we've got, what's the best of the C ones here? Might give 25 some love, as much as I put it down in C. Mainly because it was bad Mania, but I had HBK vs Taker. Give it that respect. Give HBK vs Taker the respect by putting it towards the top. WrestleMania 1 goes up. Yeah, some of these are fine. I moved 32 had some good stuff, as much as I didn't like the lowlights. Put 32 behind 36. And the rest, move 11 down a spot. And you know what, I'm happy with those right now. And the bottom ones, we had WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 4, and WrestleMania 9. You know what, I'm happy with those. That's our WrestleMania list. WrestleMania 19 and 17 are the best. WrestleMania 4, 9, and 2 are the worst. And there we have it. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree. Like, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'm going to do some more WrestleMania content throughout the next few days. Till next time, my name's Robbo. Take care.